And they start.
I don't know if they started. Doesn't sound. On what?
Sean.
Yes, audio.
This all started with an incident that occurred yesterday in the city of Genesee. We were looking for that incident was over. We towed some vehicles at the request of the police to the Geneseo Police Department to wait on a search warrant, which was obtained earlier today.
Turn that off. All right. Welcome to the Apple Canyon Lake Property Owners Town Hall meeting, part 1. It's proposed, amended, and restated declaration, Article 1 through 5. I want to welcome you. Next slide. I want to welcome you and make some introductions. First of all, on our Zoom, we do have some legal commission members. We have Steve Jennings, and we have Bill Doran. At the table today, I have Dave Allgood, and we do not have Rich Kurzula joining us this evening, or Sandra Malahi at this time. So I want to share with you the whole purpose of tonight. Oh, I forgot some more introductions. I want to, Sean Nordley, General Manager, who has put in a lot of hours to work on this project. Tonight we have Steve Trudy, who is willing to take minutes of the meeting. And also, everyone's praising mine. We also have other board members present tonight. We have Mike Harris, Henry Doden, Tom Owens, Barb Hendricks, Gordy Williams, and also again, Steve Trudy, and then we also have Steve Gorse in the audience. They are present board members. The purpose of the meeting tonight is to introduce you to the proposed amended declaration and to gather input, feedback, questions, or suggestions. Your input, feedback, questions, or suggestions will be documented and taken to the legal commission for consideration. Also, we're going to break this down. We're going to chunk it. We're going to break down the proposed amended declaration into parts with content and significant language changes. Okay, so we're not going to go through every page word for word, but we're going to break it up to where there was a change that changed the content or a change that was pretty significant. I want to go through your packet with you. Everyone should have grabbed the packet. Yes, I know you're busy, but I'm not understanding why everybody in the room doesn't have a mask on. I came here believing I would be under the guidelines for staying all the time. Steve, do you have a mask?
I do, but when I'm trying to take notes, my glasses are getting fogged up. So what would you like me to do?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have pre-existing conditions, so if I die,
I understand that, but I don't seem to be exposed.
Good for you. Thank you. All right, so let's go through the content of your package. First of all, the first one is the amended and restated declaration of covenants and restrictions for the Apple Canyon Lake property owners. This is what we are proposing. We're showing you the highlights, we're showing you the changes, for you to look at. The next document is a simplified version that took a comparison of the articles and sections in the declaration that had a significant language change. It shows you what the existing covenants look like, and it shows you the change in language, so you can do it side by side. There are many sections or articles in the existing covenants that we did not make any changes. So they're not included in the simplified version. okay? The next package is also the same thing done with the bylaw, the next packet is, too many packets in my hand, Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C, which are attachments that will be included in the proposed declaration. Your next page is about who are you, what's your role in the association. Are you a natural person? Are you an owner? Are you a legal entity? Are you a voting member? And then we have, again, copy of the restated proposed bylaws with the edits and changes. And then an easy-to-read, simplified form. And then a very, very important page for us is questions about the proposed declaration. During the presentation tonight, I ask that you please write down when you have a question. Tonight, your question should be about declaration, and then you would write what article, what section. This is an opportunity for you to say, I really don't understand what this is saying, this isn't clear to me at all. I would suggest you use this language in the sentence for consistency, or give us feedback, okay? I believe this is totally a poor article or any section. What I do at the end of the evening is you sign your name, and you don't have to, but if you sign your name and leave an email, we will send you a response back to your question. But we collect these, and we add them to a list that we are posting on our webpage with frequently asked questions or responses to questions. But even more important is the purpose of town hall meetings is to gather information and question suggestions from you to take back to legal commission for them to study, consider, or make a couple of changes, grammatical or punctuation, whatever, and just we're listening to what you have to say. This is how we're hearing from you. Although there are other places, such as the webpage, that you would be able to also ask questions. And so then there's another copy of the covenant, everything that's in here then, okay? So tonight, when I refer to things, they are in the order of which I will be referring to them in the PowerPoint. Please also note that my colleagues, Steve Jennings, Bill Doran, Dave Aldred, Sean, also may be part of the presentation in answering questions, answering or explaining something as we move forward. So, we know you have 2 hours. We have planned this presentation. Thank you for giving us the 2 hours. We are going to respect the 2 hours, and we're going to complete Articles 1 through 5 at tonight's town hall. So, as I said, the Legal Commission is who I'm representing as a member tonight. The charge of the Legal Commission is to review the ACL covenants and restrictions, bylaws, board policies, and rules and regulations, and make recommendations to the board of directors and membership for changes based on current and perceived future needs of the association. These recommendations include long-range planning and use of private properties as addressed in the governing documents. The Legal Commission shall make reports when appropriate to the membership with the objective of informing and educating the ACL-POA regarding their recommendations. So, what have we done? We have gone through every word in the existing declaration and the existing bylaws. We have studied those words. We've had legal counsel working side by side with us, and we have finally finished our product. It was a 5-year journey to do that. Lots of updating, a lot of law changes, etc. We then have come to make recommendations to the board of directors and the membership for changes based on current and perceived future needs of the association. Your feedback tonight is important to us. Now, the members of the legal commission for the past 5 years include Rich Pizzula, myself, Steve Jennings, Bill Doran, Sandra Malahy, and David Allgood. Past members include Marge Clark, Kathy Richards, and Larry Lodi, who also served on the commission.
I had to turn up my volume right now.
The recorded amended declaration of the past. In 2011, it was called the amended declaration to conform to the common interest, or the declaration, like property owners amended and restated November 6, 2011 bylaws. In 2017, it was the amended declaration to conform to the Common Interest Community Association Act. So 3 years ago, we made a change to the declaration. But the change was made in compliance with current law, CICA, and Illinois General Not-for-Profit Corporation Act, with changes that could be approved by 2/3 of the board of directors and not require a vote of the owners. They were very specific changes that could be made to align our declaration with CICA and the Not-for-Profit Act. But there was a whole lot more changes that we made in the last 3 years based on information that the board couldn't change, but only the affirmation voting of the voting members could change.
What constitutes a voting member?
We're going to get to that. Great question. Thank you for asking. All right. The Association Counsel. In 2017, we hired a new association counsel, attorneys Key and Costello, who have worked with the legal commission over the course of the last 3 years. The attorneys of Key and Costello have extensive experience representing community associations and cooperatives and understand the needs of property owners and homeowners associations. This is what this law firm does. They work with condo associations and homeowners associations all over the Midwest. During the process of reviewing the 2011-2017 declarations and bylaws, the legal commission was coached by Keith Jones, our attorney. Mr. Jones has extensive experience in preparing and amending association governing documents such as declarations, bylaws, and rules and regulations, as well as the enforcement.
I can do.
Excuse me, by having Mr. Jones, I gotta take a breath. By having Mr. Jones review all the ACL key documents, the legal commission was able to align the documents to form mere language, besides editing and advising us on the proposed documents.
That's what we're saying.
Has read all the rules and regulation documents and made advice to the Rules and Regulations Commission. He also read the Architect and Environmental Building Code documents and made recommendations to them for changes. So now all of that is blended together in the covenants and the bylaws. So the process for approval starts, if you go back to that charge, it says the board members. So the board members will continuously review the proposed declaration and bylaws with all edits and changes over the next 3 months at their September 19th, October 17th, and November 21st Board of Directors meetings. Our goal is at the November meeting that legal commission will seek an affirmative motion from the board of directors to send the proposed amended covenants and bylaws to the membership for a vote. That's what we're hoping happens in November. Meanwhile, the board is reviewing the documents. We want our members to review the documents. So town hall meetings are scheduled for September 23rd today, October 7th, October 21st, and October 28th for presenting the documents to the voting members. Town hall meetings will be recorded to place on the ACL POA website and will also be on Facebook Live right now. And I do want to give credit, this is Tim Broco, you may read articles by Tim, he's from the Communications and Recreation Department, and with his partner, Kirsten Hines, Tim and Kirsten are making sure all of this is also on the website for people who are unable to attend. Questions or comments will be collected from participants to take back to legal commission for consideration. Responses will be posted on the webpage. So we have the board of directors, we have the town hall meetings, and then we have the legal commission. So the legal commission will continue to meet following the board of directors meeting. The board met Saturday, we met Monday. And town hall meetings, we meet in 2 weeks to discuss questions and comments. Questions and comments will be posted on the webpage.
Jody?
Yes?
I have a question. I have several friends who live out here part-time and are working for our senior citizens, don't do Facebook. They want to know why the meetings are all scheduled for Wednesdays, not Saturday mornings, when they can attend.
Well, right now, and if we needed to, we couldn't originally we had a Saturday and a Sunday, and then as it turned out, it was easier for the personnel and everyone to, most people I know don't have too many Saturdays available right now in October because of the time of year. But, they're going to be right there as if on the, they don't use Facebook, but they just go to the applecanyonlake.org, and it's on there.
Yeah, and that's what their complaint is. They don't do computers. So, you know.
Well, they could, they could Zoom also, they can call in.
Right, they don't do computers.
So.
Yeah, but you can call for Zoom.
Call in.
You don't,
Owners have,
Okay.
let me tell you what they do. They have flip phones. They have landlines. That's their way of communication.
Okay, well, also,
They also said that when we had other town hall meetings, they had been on Saturdays and Sundays,
okay.
you know.
Okay, so, we can arrange for a Saturday for those people if you let me know when they can come, and we will arrange to meet with them. Okay? It may not be me, it may not be Sean, it'll be someone. Okay? Legal commission, then, we're gonna discuss this and move forward. We are also publishing everything in the Apple Report, and so that information will be there too. Now the voting procedure. The proposed changes in amended and restated declaration of covenants and restrictions for Apple Canyon Lake Property Owners Association needs the affirmative vote of 2/3 of the voting members eligible to vote in person or by written ballot at a meeting of the association duly called for the purpose of changing the 2017 declaration, provided that notice of such meeting shall be sent to all voting members at least 30 days in advance and upon its recording in the office of the Recorder of Deeds in Joe Davies County, Illinois. There are 2,743 lots in Apple Canyon Lake. 2/3 affirmative vote means that we need 1,830 2017 declaration and bylaw.
What happens if it fails?
I'm gonna get to that at the end. Me too. No, we get approximately 800. But the whole thing is, that's why we gotta get, I mean, it's not a really, that's why we're gathering the questions now, and we're taking them to commission while we have time to change things in the document. I mean, even on Saturday.
You were saying before to Edie's question, and I think it's more important than for the members to be here, is for the potential electorate to be here. And getting back to why isn't there a meeting on Saturday or Sunday?
Right, and we talked about that. We can make changes and adaptations, and that can be a comment you can write on your sheet, okay? I want to make sure in 2 hours we can get through all the material. And so, those comments I appreciate, and you can write them down so we can continue. So, here's the way it goes. January 2021, in your assessment package, will be the distribution of ballots. Then you can mail in your vote or scan your vote to ACL. Okay, we're working on that. Then what we do is we schedule a public meeting within 30 days, okay? So we're doing, day 29, I believe, and it's February 6th. Now, we count the yes votes, and we keep track of those. If we don't have 1,800, how many? 1,830 votes, then we do not adjourn that meeting. Then we set it again, we post and set it again for another 30 days. Then we keep counting. You don't have to re-vote. Once you vote, you voted. Then we continue and then we can adjourn the meeting when we get to 1,830 votes. Okay?
So what if you get 1,100 now?
If we got 1,100?
Yeah, well, I mean, you didn't hit the number of
Yeah.
1,830.
So if we got 1,100 on February 6th, we would not adjourn the
So
meeting.
that would end.
No, we
Oh,
would not.
so what I'm saying is, so the no votes can change over time? Is that what you're saying?
They can change their vote. Okay? So, and I guess, again, I'm gonna go back to, I can't say this enough. This is why we need to know if you have suggestions that you're concerned about, or you need clarification. Because we don't want just a flat no for a document when we don't understand why or what to do about it. And I'll tell you, no one's gonna start over for 500 years of rewriting this, because the law's been changed. Okay, so it is what it is. Okay, so that's the voting procedure. So tonight, collecting feedback and input from the members. There are several ways that the voting members can provide feedback, comments, and suggestions regarding the proposed declaration and bylaws. They include the town hall meeting. They include paper notes. They include Zoom participation and chat. They include Facebook Live and the ACL POA webpage. Frequently asked questions will be added to the webpage. So please leave your name and email address if you need a personal response on your questions. We would be happy to get that back to you. We'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Tonight, we have asked the people who are on Zoom to please, if they have a question, which we have, Tim, are we getting any?
No one.
No?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, if we get any questions, they can also just post it on chat. And Tim is here recording questions, so we will be collecting those questions too. Okay? Yes, Marge?
Are you following the standard procedures for conducting an election?
Yes.
Because, and if you're going to allow people to change their vote, how are you going to manage that?
We have, when the tellers or the count, Sean, how did,
Well, you have to reissue new ballots, right?
No, he said they can request another ballot, I believe. The lawyer has written out the process for us. So, as we get closer to that time and before we get ready to issue the ballots, we will send out an information sheet on how the process works. Okay? Governing documents. You ready, Sean? Next. The governing documents. In your handout, after you have the copies, there is an Exhibit A, B, and C. Tonight, we want to share with you, oftentimes people say, in the language, it refers to Exhibit A. What does Exhibit A look like? Well, this is Exhibit A. And Exhibit A is the amended and restated Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions for Apple Canyon Lake Property Owners Association. It is when each subdivision, such as Blackhawk, Hidden Springs, General Grant, Winchester, Big Spirit, Blue Gray, Apache, Independence, Eagle, Fairway, President, Pioneer, Canyon Club, and the 7 acres, Conifer Cove, which is the 24 dwelling unit, and changes in legal description on Exhibit A of 7 acres, and referred to as parcel B. This tells you the date those subdivisions were recorded in the Joe Davies, office, and became established. Okay? Exhibit B. Exhibit B is restricted property. Exhibit B is, the schedule for restricted property.
So reserved property. Reserved property.
Oh, I'm sorry, reserved property, I'm sorry. It is, reserved property, and it's as defined in Article 2 and Section 3. So you will see this reference in Article Section 3. So when you read Exhibit B, I wanted you to know, what is Exhibit B? Where is it? Okay? Usually this is attached to the back of the declaration. But it tells about the different parcels which were purchased. For example, number 2, a parcel of land containing 80 acres, more or less, described in that certain warranty deed dated August 15, 1989, and reported on August 18, 1989, as document number 199030 in the office of the Recorder of Deeds of Joe Davies County, Illinois. It's the 80 acres, which we know as Batham Trail. So that's when this was recorded. Okay?
Why didn't you put Batham Trail on there?
Well, this
So
goes
we
to
didn't have to,
legal.
be looking at everything.
I know.
Batham Trail.
Batham Trail was named after.
Oh, I know, well, the property that is.
That's why I take that as an example. Those are reserved property.
I know you want us to write down things, but I just gotta say this real quick. Okay, maybe my ADHD is like, roaring right now, but I'm just gonna say, like, as an example, can't we get the, like, Cliff Notes view of this? Like, what does the Batham Trail have to do with me with the changes right now?
It's just explaining the components of the declaration.
Okay, if you're trying to input and vote, you gotta make this.
You gotta come with that.
Hot topic, you gotta make it the view, hot topic.
We're gonna get to the hot topic.
This is like only a nerd would like to, and I enjoy it, don't get me wrong. I spent hours through it.
It's for
But
clarification.
this isn't gonna get your vote.
Okay. Well, I mean, again, we wanna know what in the document needs to be changed, not in the presentation.
Yeah, you gotta tell me what this means to me.
Okay. Next is Exhibit C. Exhibit C is a new addition to the declaration. The exhibit is documenting the lots approved by the Board of Directors that are restricted lots. What does it mean to you? In the new, proposed amended declaration, we aren't allowing restricted lots.
For the current was grandfathered in.
That's what this is. These are the ones grandfathered in. Okay? That's why all that is.
That was great.
Okay, well, I couldn't leave out A and B, and only do C. It wouldn't make much sense. All right, let's go on. So, also, which is new, is an amendment this year. This amendment is an ACL Homeowners Energy Policy Statement. Although this document was approved at the March 18, 2020 Board of Directors meeting by the Board of Directors, by Illinois law, it must be attached as an amendment proposed declaration. Unfortunately, voting members aren't voting on the content of the ACL Energy Policy Statement, which is really confusing of why does it have to be attached. But that's the law, okay? Now, next, bylaw titles, just to keep track. The titles of all these bylaws and also the covenants have changed. So the declaration, here is what the present one is called, and here is the proposed one. Okay, it's called the Amended and Restated Declaration of Covenants and Restrictions for Apple Canyon Lake Property Owners Association. The next is bylaws. Presently, the existing bylaws are the amended and restated bylaws, October 21, 2017. The proposed bylaws is Apple Canyon Lake Property Owners Association amended and restated bylaws. Okay, so a lot of times in the declaration and in the bylaws, you'll see cross out of the old title. Okay? So what's changed? Community instruments orders. So, I have the 2017, which is your existing CICA, Articles of Incorporation, Covenants and Restrictions, Bylaws, Rules and Regs, Board-approved policies, and Board-approved committee operations and procedures. The proposed declaration is the Illinois Common Interest Community Association, same CICA, but a new state law, the Illinois General Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. So you may have read some of Sean's articles about committees and commissions. You'll see those words in these documents. That is part of the Illinois General Not-for-Profit Corporation Act. Then the Articles of Incorporation, the Declaration, Bylaws, the ACL Building and Environmental Code, which takes up Article 3 in the new proposed declaration, and Article 7. And then board-approved policies, rules and regulations, and board-approved committee commissions. So those are changes in the community instruments. Next, we have, what is CICA? For those who don't know what CICA is, it's the Illinois Common Interest Community Act. It was signed into law. It's common interest communities, which define as real estate other than a condominium or cooperative, with respect to which any person, by virtue of his or her ownership of a partial interest or unit, therefore is obligated to pay for the maintenance, improvement, insurance premium, real estate taxes, and common areas described in the declaration, which is administered by an association, and may include an attached or detached townhome, villa, or single-family home, or master association. The definition encompasses all homeowners, master associations, umbrella associations, and townhouse associations, which are not subject to the Condominium Property Act. While CICA establishes regulation of common interest community associations where none existed before, many of its provisions overlap. A lot of the changes in the declaration and bylaws we are sharing with you are due to CICA or the Illinois Not-for-Profit Act. Okay?
So is the restricted lot part of CICA, or is that something that we have decided to do?
That was something
as an
that we
organization? Okay, so that's above and beyond what CICA did.
Right. All right, Not-for-Profit Act, this is just kind of what the Not-for-Profit Act governs, and it's basically, because you can't see this, it's basically the bylaws the incorporation of an association, the meeting of members, the informal action by members entitled to vote, notice of members' meetings, voting processes, et cetera. Those are things that are changes because of the Illinois Not-for-Profit Act. Articles of incorporation are known as the charters establishing the association as a non-stock and not-for-profit corporation and give office life to the association as a legal entity. This is necessary because the association holds title to the land comprising the common area. Then the declaration, commonly known as the covenants and restrictions, is a legal contract that binds homeowners to the association and the association to each of the homeowners. To a large extent, the covenants and restrictions identify unit lots, that's what they focus on, common areas, define maintenance obligation of owners and the association, and otherwise stipulate how the land can and cannot be used. I always remember the covenants as really focusing on land and the property. Bylaws are operational guidelines dealing with the organizational and administrative aspects of the community, such as elections, meetings, and the composition of the association board. Types of property, we have reserved property. Those are real property owned and acquired by the association, which is used in furtherance of the association's purposes and objectives, but which is not subject to the restrictions imposed by this declaration and which shall be used, those uses deemed to be in the association's best interest, the restricted property. The common properties, what we all love around here, the areas of land shown on and recorded subdivision plat of the property as tract, open space, greenway, and other similar parcel. That's kind of, reserved is B, common is more of the A, and the open spaces. And then the owner properties is Exhibit A. That's the natural persons or legal entities whose estates or interests, individually or collectively, aggregate fee, simple, absolute ownership of the lot. Okay? Now, we're going to get to the meat. Okay? So we know everything that builds the declaration and the covenant. And so the meat of it is now a big part in Articles 1 through 5, Architectural, Building, and Environmental Code. The AECC Building Code, which was one of the community instruments listed, refers to the Apple Canyon Lake Building and Environmental Code as amended from time to time. An updated code was approved by the Board of Directors on May 16, 2020. So another goal of the proposed amended declaration is alignment of the documents. Okay? I just want to point out that happens regularly. That happened what? Regularly. The amended changes, yeah. Or ACC, yes. They're always updated. Right, and you're going to see in our update, we left out a lot of the specific things, so that ACC, so we wouldn't have to go for a vote from the membership on some of the items. Right. Marge?
It's because that is a document that is approved by the board, and I submitted one of these points to you, that I believe board policy should precede architectural, building, and environmental code on the list of, authority of the document.
Yes, and we took your question to legal commission on Monday night. Many of the changes in the proposed declaration reflect changes made in the building code. And the building code is written to align with the Joe Davies County Building Code and the International Residential Code for 1- and 2-family dwellings. Okay? So, what is proposed in this document is building height to improve it. This is kind of, to me, living area, lot line, recreational vehicles, single-family dwelling, trailer, temporary structures, wells and plumbing, non-conforming uses, deviations, by agreement with the association. In the declaration, Article 3, you're gonna see those changes. So I'm just telling you, where were there some changes? Article 3 and 7 of the proposed declaration address general restrictions, land use and building types, and architectural and environmental control committee. Okay, so let's go. Big change in the document is the alignment of who you are and what your role is. So you asked the question, sir. So who's a voting member or who's not or whatever? On this sheet that you have in your packet that looks like this, tells who are you? Find your ACL title based on your ownership. Do you want to go through this one?
Sure.
I need a break.
Okay, so really we have two types of owners out here. A natural person who would be just, I own the lot under Sean Nordley, or a legal entity, which could be a trust, could be an LLC, could be a corporation. So we wanted to break it down into what that means for each, okay? Natural person definition shall mean any human being who is age 18 or older and has a legal capacity to hold title to a lot. Under legal entity, it shall mean any being that is a legally recognized individual identity other than a natural person, including without limitation a partnership, corporation, trust, limited liability company, or any other such being recognized by law. Okay, so who's the member then? For lots owned by a natural person, all owners of the lot are considered members of the association. So who's on the deed? If it's natural people, it could be Mike, Tom, Barb are on the deed, so they're the natural persons, okay? And they're the owners of that lot. For a lot owned by a legal entity, such legal entities may designate in writing one natural person who has an ownership interest in the legal entity and shall function as the member for such lot for the purpose of these governing documents. So if it's the Sean Nordley Trust, I have to put in writing who that natural person would be, Sean Nordley, or my wife, or whoever that is, okay? Who is the natural person? A human being who is age 18 and older, who has a legal For the legal entity, it's the same. Any human being who has the age 18 and older with the legal capacity to hold title to a lot, okay? But who is the owner? The owner shall mean the natural persons whose estates or interests individually or collectively aggregate for Bill, I had to mute you, sorry. Okay, so the owner is who is on that deed for the natural persons, okay? And then for the legal entity, the owner shall mean the legal entities whose estates or interests individually or collectively aggravate fee simple absolute ownership of the lot. So it could be the Sean Nordley Trust. The Sean Nordley Family Trust is the owner of that then, okay? So who's the voting member? For the natural person, the voting member shall mean the natural person designated from among the owners of any lot as to the person to whom the association shall send its notices and invoices, and the one person who has the power to vote on all matters requiring a vote under this declaration. So if it's Mike, Tom, and Barb as their natural person owners, they designate Tom to be the voting member. That's who we send the ballots to. That's who we send the invoices to, so the assessment would go to that person. For the voting member for a legal entity, It shall mean the natural person designated from among the owners of any lot owned by legal entities by the owner of that lot as the one person to whom the association shall send its notices and invoices, and the one person who has the power to vote on all matters requiring a vote under this declaration. So if it's a legal entity, Sean Nordley Trust, I would give to the office that Sean Nordley, who's a trustee, is the voting member of that. Now, for a legal entity, if I do not give that information, that legal entity does not actually get a vote. So when we get a trust on a deed, if we can't get a hold of that owner, we have some that are that way, but they have to designate who that owner is from the trust that has the vote.
Will those instances be struck from the total number needed?
They would, yes.
You can also change the voting member if William Ware is the first name on the deed, he's the voting member. But if he decides that I'm going to be a voting member, he has to just put it in writing that he wants Jody Ware to be the voting member. So if you own two lots, you can put one person on one, one on the other.
You're doing that, are you going to have that as a notarized legal signature? Or?
No, you don't need it. Now, the reason we're talking about this again, how does it affect you? The language in the, proposed amended declaration is there's more language on the voting member and who they are, and if you're a legal entity, how you can designate who the voting member is.
Yeah, I know, there's always a lot of controversy on that, about who's on the deed, who's the member, all that stuff.
Yes.
Well, and there's more and more legal entities that we're seeing. Trusts are becoming more popular, so it needs to be dealt with.
Cleared it up.
Right.
Vicki?
When Jen and I moved out here permanently, we had to decide who was gonna be the voting member, and I had to sign my name to a legal document where, that I was eligible to vote.
Right. That's changed.
Oh, great. Wish I would've known that.
Oh, my gosh, Marjorie told me that, you had to get everybody's signature to see if they matched. All right, so that's what's your role. So, Article 2, now we're gonna start talking about some of the changes. So, if you wanna grab your either simplified version, or you can grab the one that has a lot of edit in it, just make sure you grab the one that has declaration. So it's the one, I believe that, purple or red, Sean?
Purple.
Okay, there you go. It's this one, you wanna follow along. I'm looking here because I've already gone through basically the definitions for something, or told you what the changes were. And so, and we did changes, who's the owner, natural person, et cetera. So Article,
Let me just interrupt, sorry. For those on Zoom or Facebook, if you look at the website, it's on the town hall page, and all of these documents will be on there, so you can pull them up also if you'd like.
okay? So here, this is declarations, additions thereto, and mergers. It's Article 2, Section 3. So just to give you an example, on your question sheet, if you wanted to ask a question about that, or make a suggestion, or anything, you could write here, circle declaration, and then Article 2, Section 3, and write your comments. That will help the, legal commission to look at your suggestions, right? What?
Is this open to comment tonight?
At the end of the meeting, after we get through, if people want to, yes.
How much time are you going to allot to that for the property owners to comment?
I don't have time on it.
I have comments I want to make about this, and I have 5 reasons that I could not vote for the language as it is changed.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. All right, here we go. Current language. The association may acquire additional reserved properties when deemed to be in the best interest of the association. And that is how the language reads now. That the association may acquire additional reserved properties when deemed to be in the best interest of the association. Any or all of the reserved properties may be added to the scheme of the amended declaration upon approval in writing of the association pursuant to a vote of the voting members and by recording of a supplement or declarations of covenants and restrictions, provided that any such addition shall have the affirmative vote of the majority of the votes of the voting members voting in person or by written ballot at a meeting duly called for this purpose, written notice of which shall be sent to all the voting members not less than 10 days and not more than 30 days in advance, and shall set forth the purpose of the meeting. Okay? Here's the proposed language. The previous language states that the association may acquire additional reserved properties when deemed to be in the best interest of the association. But the previous language does not describe how the association may acquire additional reserved properties. The proposed language adds that additional reserved property may be acquired by 2/3 affirmative vote, 6 out of 9 board members of the board of directors.
So that's basically saying that the board can buy the property they want to price.
And the language, but the language before says it may.
Why are we in the property leasing business? Why is this even in here?
Okay, we're not gonna go there right now, we're gonna go through the changes in the declaration, but you can
So I thought this was a town hall meeting to explain to us what you want to support.
write down your question, we will be posting the answers to your questions.
I can't.
But honestly, that's not a town hall meeting. That's not a town hall.
We're not doing that right now, Marge, we won't get.
I just sat at home
Well, the town hall
and
meeting,
studied
you're
it.
not going to allow the property owners to discuss it.
Our process tonight is to go through the changes
Are you going to do
in
this
Article
every meeting?
Yes.
So you're not going to allow much.
I did not say that, Marge.
Discussion.
But I'd rather hear her comments in context with this context.
She will have her opportunity,
Okay.
okay? I owe it to the people who have attended here. We're the people.
These are board members.
These
They
are
know-
board
They know what's
members.
going down over there.
Okay,
We're the people.
we're the
You
people.
are the people.
We got questions. Nobody else showed up here tonight, okay? We care. We want to hear the answers to this. We're concerned.
I understand, ma'am, and we are going
Debbie.
to.
My name's Debbie.
Debbie, I understand your concern, and the way we're gonna try to get through to.
This is legal. You're not telling me what you're changing.
It just concerns me that you're changing this to give the board that kind of power.
We've added the language.
I mean, we already have one boondoggle up here now. And now you're saying that the floodgates are open, 6 members of the board could buy another 100 acres here, another 100 acres there. Why is this in here?
With no
Well, here, the old language said that you could buy it. It
Yeah.
just doesn't explain how you buy it.
So,
If they bought it anyhow, so that doesn't matter, that's a moot point.
I think March has other comments.
It was bought. Doesn't matter how they did it, they did it.
They ignored CICA law when they did this. They continue to ignore CICA law when they did that transaction. I cannot accept this language as it is because it would mean exactly what you said. That they can go ahead and wholesale buy property whenever it strikes them as something to do.
March in 1989.
You wanna use your 1875 votes, leave this in there exactly the way it is, and then they'll vote it down.
is,
I won't vote
Would that, it would be voted down.
No, this stays there. First of all.
We don't want more property. We don't want more property.
This association is not cash flush.
Right.
And they have proven that with the $1 million that they spent on 134 acres. Add to that, if you have, you know, we can't just wholesale make on-plan big purchases. If an emergency comes along, CICA provides for that, and the board can assess the property owners for an emergency if it's a huge expense. That's fine.
Can I ask you, was there a voting member vote for the purchase of the reserve property, the parcel that is 80 acres, now known as Backum's Ranch?
I was not involved.
No. And there was also a loan taken out,
Yeah, that was what, 50 years ago.
1989.
Yeah, there's more than that, so I mean, there's the moot, that is a moot point too.
Okay.
The point is,
And it's 30 years. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was pre-CICA.
thank you, that was pre-CICA.
Okay.
but
That was way
the law
pre-CICA.
has been violated here because CICA says if the total common expenses in a budgeting year exceed the total amount of the approved and adopted budget, the Common Interest Community Association shall disclose this variance to all its members and specifically identify the subsequent assessments needed to offset this
What?
variance.
And you just explained to us before who the members were.
They have not done this.
Well, hey, the board's here, what's the board say about this? Nothing.
Here, legal counsel, who we've contacted on this and been with through this whole land process, says that it is legal, that we've done that correctly.
That's not what we're
Okay.
saying. That's not what
Okay.
we're saying. We're just saying that we're a little bit concerned that 6 votes on the board can just go out and spend money. I mean, you already blew $1 million, well, I'm not saying you blew it, excuse me, that was false. We already spent $1 million, you know, there's talk about what we have to do for the dam. There's all kinds of things that need, people want recreation. They don't want to be into the land leasing business.
Okay, so,
Okay?
I mean,
Now,
here,
you may be
here,
making money off of it now.
should the legal commission consider the original language then?
Well, I just think that the whole direction that puts it in there, that gives the board that much unbridled power is wrong.
So again, should the legal commission consider?
Electric and seeing what the electric feels.
Right.
And if you put on more shows like this with all this legal.
Like, yeah, if you just say something, you guys will get killed.
Okay, and
You
that's,
saw what happened in the last election, it'll happen again.
people want recreation. Build an indoor swimming pool for the kids. Did you see the thousands of kids here this summer down at the dog beach at President's Bay? Okay, my kids are in Seattle. I don't get to enjoy it. Those kids, they need somewhere to go. You want people to buy houses here? Put in some indoor recreation for something to do in the winter.
Even a basketball court or something like that.
People don't want
Okay.
meetings
Why are we buying a
and
parcel of
weddings
land?
and more land. Give us some recreation, improve the lake.
Okay, can we get back to this?
Sure.
Article 2, please.
That I think the board should look into, and Sean, you should explain to this board what the auditors told us at the June Budget Committee meeting, that said, any money that flows into our capital project plan account and R&R, according to accounting standards, new accounting standards, that money is going to be considered a liability to us, which the association has an obligation to pay. So we have to earmark what money is going in there, and you and Ashley have presented projections that say we're putting $608,000 a year into that capital project plan fund, which goes along with what property owners have asked for to save the money. We're also looking at spending over $500,000 a year on R&R off the top
That's correct. That's correct.
Exactly, and you know that.
I do.
Have you explained that to the board?
Yes.
The board knows that?
And still, it's still
And
in
they
the head.
still want this? I'm sorry.
That's sad.
I want my money that's here federally insured. Land is not federally insured. You're losing money on the farm. None of you guys were farmers. You had no idea what you guys were getting into.
Somebody just drifted along with the bus, you feel it's fine.
I disagree, but
Well,
that's here,
and the thing
listen,
is that
this is,
you gotta tamp the flames down to the burning around,
okay,
because that's what people think.
okay. Well, here, we need to get back to Article 2 and get back to the town hall, okay? Rather
You
than,
get that Article 2, but it's not gonna change it.
It's not gonna
You're
pass.
not gonna pass
And
this.
Okay,
you're
so-
losing the next election unless you start listening.
okay, so again, I'm going to ask, what do you propose? Do we go back to the original language here?
Yes.
Okay,
But that can pass with a 5-4 vote. Leave it as it was. It says the association may acquire it for the best interest. Before you can get to
How you get it
identify
recorded.
those funds.
right,
Since the board is supposed to identify what those funds and capital project funds are for. We've been dealing with camp for 3 years. We have a flood mitigation program that has been told the budget is now at $1.2 million to do the flood mitigation. Where do you people think on the board this money comes from? And we can't just keep raising dues. Besides, you didn't account for the 25% increase in dues after you bought the 134 acres that the law says you were supposed to account for and designate how much of our future assessments were going to be used to offset that expenditure. That's what CICA said you're supposed to have done, and it has not been done. So now you start doing the math.
Okay. This work is from the legal commission regarding the legal governing document of Apple Canyon Lake. It is going to sound like legal speak. There's nothing jazzy in explaining the changes in the governing document. If you have another way, a better song and dance to make this a whole lot more exciting, share it in your comment sheet. But what we're showing you tonight is the old language with the proposed new language.
But you're not talking about the politics behind it. We're here to talk about the politics behind it.
And that's not what this is about.
Okay, did you want a legal meeting then? You should have advertised this instead of a town hall. You should have said, this is a legal meeting to sit and dissect legal ease. That's what you should have done.
Instead, again,
It's not a town hall.
you would write down how you would like.
I'm not gonna write anything. I'm here to talk.
Okay.
It's a town hall.
That's how fun all these things done. People get to ask questions.
It's, do you want to move on?
Yeah, let's keep moving on, but let's try to make the legal piece more,
Accessible.
accessible. Like the thing that you read about the Harold Dowden thing, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody, but I would speak to the vast majority of people who have asked it. And I think that the vast majority of people for most of this stuff are gonna say, okay, that's good, so you don't have to necessarily go line by line. Why isn't there like a little cliff note on this page saying, what this basically means is, in 2 sentences or less?
Here's the change. It almost seems like you're
Okay,
trying to
I mean,
hide
if you really wanna sell this, that's what you need to do, because you've got 2 more town halls coming, the same crap's gonna go down again.
We're showing the changes. That's what we're revealing.
Okay, if you can't take input, that's fine. Just move on. Move on.
Thank you for your permission. Article 3, general restrictions, section 1. This is regarding the land use and building type, the changes in section 1. This is why I explained to you the building code, the building and architectural code. Article 3 and Article 7 are about the architectural environmental control. So, this is about Exhibit A, all those properties. This is about all additions, alterations, improvements on lots are subject to the ACL building code and prior approval in writing. These are some of the changes. No structure, except as specifically authorized elsewhere in the proposed declaration, shall be erected or re-erected or maintained on any lot, except one dwelling designed for occupancy by a single family, which may include an attached garage as well as one detached garage, dwelling, accessory buildings as permitted, and water facilities, all for the sole use of the owner. This is a change in the document. I want you to know that. There's no way to jazz that up. No more than 30% on the area of a lot may be occupied by buildings and structures and impervious structures. So you can't cover up more than 30% of the lot.
Did you change it from 25 to 30?
No, we defined it, so it's more
just defined it.
It wasn't very clear before. People are like, what's 30% of what? Is a garden 30%?
Right.
Is a driveway 30%? Okay? No living space above the garage needs, that's not right. Living space above garage needs AECC approval. It can only be used for the sole use of the owner and shall not be rented. So some people are requesting to make the area up above, maybe where they keep some of their family or guests. And so this describes how you can do that, and it's through the AECC.
So are you grandfathering any existing ones?
Anything that's done is already in, and that's changed in the language. It says any structure after January 1st, 2001, okay?
What brought this up? I'm just wondering.
Huh?
What brought this up? I'm just wondering.
Clarification. It's just general restrictions.
Well, I mean, it's always been allowed, like Joe Foreman, if you know Joe.
Yeah,
He's got a place, he rents it out, it's on his garage.
that was prior.
Several people rent it out, I don't.
That was prior. Joe and Joan don't own it anymore.
I'm just wondering, what brought this up? Did you get complaints? Why don't you want them to be able to rent out above their garage? I'm just wondering, what generated the discussion to change the ordinance?
It has to do with one living building on.
Not
So
exactly.
when Joe built it, it was against the law?
It's not, it's always been in the language that you couldn't rent it separately from the house. If you want to lease the house, and then you can lease that.
So they were doing it, they were enforcing it?
Exactly.
Okay, they were enforcing it, all right.
Effectively, what happens if you have living space above a garage, and you have a home, and the garage is detached, and you are living in a home, and you lease the garage, now you have two dwellings on a single-family home lot.
Right,
That violates a whole bunch of ordinances beyond our scope.
right.
Plus, when you start renting out these spaces, there are things you have to go through with the county, and there are things that have to be met too. If you're gonna rent out a space for somebody other than yourself to occupy, you have to meet health code, and there's a whole bunch of other things that have to be met.
All right. Very good, thank you.
Question,
Yes.
why do we need a building code? The county has a building code. We should have an architectural code regarding structures and how they look, depending on other people.
Yeah.
And
But we mirrored Joe Davies County, and we are allowed to be more restrictive. We can be more restrictive than Joe Davies.
it's like
So-
saying you can't make it less, but you can make it more restrictive.
Right, and a lot of that, the decisions that you'll read in the language is because we're trying to preserve the natural environment and stuff. That's why 30% of your property. That's why once we get to building materials,
talks about that it needs to blend into your property. That's not a Joe Davies restriction, that's an ACL,
Setback lines.
okay? Yeah, setbacks from the lake, things like that
Right.
are
From what I
ACL.
understand, the territory's architectural codes haven't changed in all the time. They have a set of rules, it's almost as though they're written in stone.
And I can tell you that Lake Carroll's code changes all the time, and it's very, very, very restricted.
Lake Carroll observes a code that is 2 years newer than the one that we observe. Because we are in the county, we have no choice but to observe what the county ordinances are.
Right.
We have
So
to
it's
have a county permit.
So it's the county,
But I mean, when the county increased changed the building code, we had to go through a procedure to change our building code to match theirs.
absolutely have to, yes, because we cannot observe
This
less.
is why I'm saying is why do we have to have a code for buildings? Why don't we just have a code for architectural that limits that?
Why don't you write that comment down?
Building code also.
Henry, please write your comment down, and we will take it to legal counsel. Okay? Okay? All right, what's next? Okay. Changes in, Article 3, Section 1, and please follow along here. You see a lot of stuff in purple, that's what I'm telling you, those were changes. And so, no structure, garage, water facility, or other dwelling accessory building shall be erected prior to construction of a dwelling, except for shoreline stabilization or watershed projects, as prior approved by AECC. Everything has to be approved for AECC. No dwelling accessory building or structure may be erected except in such manner and location as hereinafter provided or as approved in writing by AECC. You want to add a shed, you submit the plans and everything, and you take it to AECC. No items including but not limited to equipment, boats, trailers, campers, recreational vehicles, building materials, firewood, or other similar items may be temporarily or permanently stored on the vacant lot. The first thing you can have on a lot is a dwelling. You can't have a shed, you can't have a pile of firewood, you can't have a playground swing set on a vacant lot. You have to have a house first. Once you have a house, then you can add other accessories to the lot.
Julie, I have a question, I'm a little confused. If you read that in the magenta coloring, a little dotted line goes over and it says deleted. What was deleted, and what does that mean? The line is no items including but not limited to, and then there's a dashed line, and then in the right-hand column it says deleted.
That's the, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, on my paper here,
Yeah, that's the old language.
that's the old language.
Right.
Okay. So it just, then where'd H go? There's no H now?
Correct.
A lot of that.
So you can put anything on the lot you want?
No.
No.
No, the magenta is the new.
Yeah, the magenta is the new language.
Oh, excuse me.
So what was
No,
deleted?
it's confusing because it said the agenda was deleted.
And sometimes when an item was deleted
So
or
anything in
combined,
agenda is new.
Great.
Okay.
then if some things have been consolidated, and just for the lettering purpose, we had to go A, B, C, we weren't gonna keep D, so then,
Yeah, but the thing is, it's just confusing because if somebody came in here, just grabbed one of these and went home with it, they'd say, oh, it looks like everything in purple, this side of purple is deleted.
and that's where you have this form. And this, okay, sorry. This form, if you go and you look through it, shows you Article 3, and it shows you the old language, side by side to the new language, because it is very overwhelming to take the old 2017 or existing document, I should call it old, and the proposed amended declaration, and combine them word for word. So this is the simplified version, okay? Debbie?
If I had a code and then I have a lot next door, can I have firewood on the lot?
If you combine them,
You have to combine them.
correct.
You can't, okay, what are you gonna do with all the people like my neighbor has a fire pit on his lot?
They're probably combined.
No, they're not combined. No, he tried to get the percentage off, and they voted him down. Yeah, so
No,
no.
that's different, that's,
Yeah, I tried to restrict it.
He did not, he was combined, but he tried to get it.
No, he never combined it. He never combined it, no.
He tried to get it restricted.
He tried to get it restricted.
Right, that's,
Right, but the thing is, he's got a fire pit on it. So everybody, I have a lot, but I don't have anything on it. But there's lots of people in Apple Canyon Lake who have 2 and 3 lots, and they have stuff all over all 3 lots. I can go down my lot and give you probably 50 structures.
Well, I would
So,
say,
no, honestly, come over to my house and I'll walk you down the block.
but none of, okay, here, we can talk after about that.
Yeah, that is not gonna fly.
Has to get some air. All right. So, open your simple version of the covenant and turn to Article 3. A lot of work has been done to try to communicate in different ways. Okay? Let's see if I can follow this without messing up the pages. So, it should say page 16. Okay? So, here is where the comparison is, land use and building type. Due to time, I'm not gonna read through each one of these because we won't make it through tonight's agenda. And so, it shares with you, we've already went through land use, then building height. On the far right side, you see the reason for the change. Okay? So, building height. Originally it was 17 feet. It has now been changed to 35 feet. But it also describes in the language how you measure that 35 feet, okay? And again, that language just so aligned to the new building code. Materials, section 4, materials to use in size of dwelling. We had a 1,400 square foot requirement for a house. That is now 1,000 square feet. Okay, again, to align. And these are the things I call the what's in it for me. Location on the lot. This shows you exactly how it's being measured. It's clarifying language, it's also language to conform to the Joe Davies County Building Code. And then this language provides clarification on what a 100-foot setback, where it begins. This language, we can keep moving forward, Sean, I think. Yeah, keep going. Yeah, keep going. One back. Location on lot. It's 100 feet from any existing lake edge as established at pool level of 800 feet above mean sea level, regardless of the survey pin location of the block or the greenway. Okay, so more definition in that. Section 7, the language was added on the owner's responsibility for keeping any water facility located on his or her lot in good condition and repair, and any facility that is not maintained in good condition and repair shall be removed from the property by the owner at the owner's expense, following written notice from the association. We didn't have the how in there before. This is the how. You pay for it when you get written notice from the association. Another big change was Section 8, home occupation, nuisance, and animals. People read it that you couldn't have any home occupation unless you had it approved by the board, was the old language. Now, we have used the language from the Joe Davies, county's adopted county zoning ordinance on what home occupations you can have at Alpha Lake. The board approved this in November 17, 2018, and basically it's a list of home occupations you can have, and then there's only on that list 2 or 3 that you cannot have, and those were occupations that were involving chemicals and things like that. You can't have chemical storage, okay, on your property for a job where you're selling it, you're distributing it, or whatever. So you can have a home occupation. The proposed covenants add clarifying language on animals. And in the Community Interest Association, there's the Illinois Community Interest Association, there's a lot of new language coming on types of animals and nuisance of animals because of dogs that may be barking all day long, or chickens having, it was not defined in the prior one. So the definition is, what you can't have animals, livestock, fowl, or poultry of any kind shall be raised, bred, or kept in any dwelling or elsewhere on the property, provided, however, that dogs, cats, and other common domestic household pets may be kept in the dwelling subject to rules and regulations adopted by the board. And then any pet causing or creating a nuisance. If you have a dog that is vicious, threatening to your family or your kids, that's a concern. And so, pet or neighbor's pet that's unreasonable disturbance shall be removed from the properties upon 7 days written notice from the board to the owner of the dwelling containing such pet, and the decision the board makes shall be final. Okay, that's on pets. Article 3, Section 9 and 10, temporary structures. All of this is added. It clarified some. It talked about accessory building. It's a temporary structure. You cannot have it on a vacant lot. Wells and plumbing, the only language added is what I underlined, by company licensed to conduct inspection of the well. Clarifying language, okay? No biggie. Non-conforming uses, all existing structures built prior to January 1st, 2000 are exempt from the requirements stated in this Article 3. All existing structures built according to a written permit issued by the ACC on or after January 1st, 2000 are exempt from the requirements stated in Article 3. Section 13, deviations by agreement with the association. One of the big changes was you'll see strikeout on the word grantee. Instead, it says owner. Also new language that any such deviation shall not establish a precedent and shall not constitute a waiver of any such covenant as to other lots in the property. So if your neighbor does it and you want to do it, that's not the case. We do not, it does not set a precedent. Okay? Section 14, restrictions.
Joey,
Yeah.
on that last one that you were talking about.
Yes.
Is there a time or something, is the lot sold, or does it go back to the original set of rules? Or does the waiver carry through forever?
Did the word say built?
For
Built
non-conforming?
prior.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about the non-conforming
Yeah.
uses? Yeah, it's built prior to January 1, 2000.
Well, I'm not talking about that, you're talking that a waiver can be issued, right? For
No.
people to do something?
It does not constitute a waiver. Okay? Go ahead and write it down, Henry, and,
Let's talk,
maybe the language is not clear enough. Okay? Section 14, leasing property. This is, kind of a biggie. People leasing their lots or dwellings shall deliver a copy of the signed lease to the association no later than the date of occupancy or 10 days after the lease is signed, whichever comes first. All leases shall be in writing. In the event that an owner fails to comply with the leasing provisions set forth in the Apple Lake property owner's governing documents, or otherwise in violation of section, the association may seek to evict a tenant from the dwelling or lot under Article 9 of the Code of Civil Procedure, as well as pursue any and all legal or equitable remedies available to the association as to the owner. Furthermore, all provisions of the association's community instruments shall be applicable to any person leasing a dwelling or lot and shall be deemed to be incorporated in any lease executed or renewed. The board may proceed directly against the tenant at law or in equity under the provisions of Article 9 of the Code of Civil Procedure. For any other breach by tenant or any of the provisions of the association's community instruments, the owner leasing his or her dwelling or lot shall not be relieved thereby from any of the owner's obligation under the association's community instruments as otherwise provided by law. The board may also from time to time adopt rules and regulations pertaining to the leasing of dwellings and lots, including policies, procedures to further the goals and objectives of this section.
Does this include Airbnb short-term leasing?
Airbnb short-term, yes, it does, and also, those individuals who do lease use the Joe Davies.
anybody that has, that short-term leases has to register with the county. And then the county has certain restrictions and an annual inspection of the facility. So what we do is we get a list from the county each year of what homes, are registered to lease, and then we send them a letter explaining this here.
Okay, good. Okay? All right. What's next? This is use of properties by non-owners. This is new language. It was not in the existing code. So there was not language in the previous document. It states that upon reasonable request, occupants shall be required to identify themselves to employees or agents of the association and to identify the dwelling they are occupying and the identity of the owner of such dwelling. This is new language, and it's an example of the attorney's involvement. This is language. Remember I said the attorney's role is to protect the property owners. And this is an example of that. You're going to find a lot of legalese added by our attorney who reviewed these documents for 3 years and reviewed any article section we made a change in and told us the legal or what it should be, and then we would change it, okay? Section 16 on Article 3 is the lot combination. This is new language in the proposed declaration. It was previously isolated in the building code. So we, again, we're trying to mirror, and this is about what you can and cannot do with land use at Apple Canyon Lake. So this is new language that was added on how, about lot combination, and it mirrors the language in the building, in the ACL, Building and Architectural Code. Article 4. This is why we created the chart, voting member, owner, etc. So membership voting rights. So please refer to the previous sheet, right here. So what are you, and look at section under membership. Who is the member? For lots owned by natural persons, all owners of a lot are considered members of the association. For lots owned by legal entities, such legal entities may designate in writing one natural person who has ownership interest in the legal entity and who shall function as the member for such lot for the purpose of these governing documents. Voting member shall mean the natural person designated from among the owners of any lot owned by legal entities by the owners and of that lot as the one person to whom the association shall send its notices and invoices, and the one person who has the power to vote on all matters requiring a vote under the declaration. Okay? That's the new language in Article 4. Also, the next one, Sean. Section 4, rights of owner spouses. This is new language added to the declaration. An individual who is married to an owner, i.e. the owner's spouse, shall have the same right and easement of enjoyment in and to the common properties, subject to the same restrictions as stated herein as the owner he or she is married to has, provided, however, that such spouse shall be required to prove to the association, or provide, it says prove, and it should say provide, to the association his or her name, current address, and telephone number prior to exercising the right. Okay?
So wouldn't both of their names be on the title? So you're
Not
saying,
necessarily.
so you're saying if one of the names is on the title?
Not necessarily. You could have one person's name on the deed,
Yeah?
but I own property where just my name is on the deed. I've been married for 25 years, and my wife, if her name was not on the deed here, she would not be able to have the same privileges I have, even though we've been married for 25 years. And the money used to purchase it would be community property. So what they're saying here is they're recognizing these spouses who are not on the deed and giving them the same privileges that their spouse has.
Would you enumerate those privileges? I mean,
It says right here.
Yes.
It's right up there.
yeah, I mean,
The common area.
This is just a point I have to bring up, and I'm not being a smartass, I'm really not. But I have to say to myself, I'm looking at language that isn't sexist or anything else. Why is it limited to a married couple? You know what I mean? A lot of people are married and they share property. So,
That is, I don't know.
You know, on that question there, what would be wise to do is write that question down, so we can refer that to legal counsel
take a note,
and let legal counsel give us an answer on it.
I'm not writing it down, I'm not. That's what a town hall is, and then they take minutes and they talk, and they write a thing of it. I'm not writing it down.
Okay. Let's go on. Conclusion. Questions and comments shall be submitted on questions about proposed amended declarations and bylaws, or on chat, or on the ACL webpage. So, what I hope, our next town hall meeting is October 7th. And I guess I'm going to ask those who participated in, were quiet during the evening, because I've already heard from the other ones, what did it go okay? Did you get information on the changes in declaration for Articles 1 through 5? Yes? And you've got some materials to take home that you too can do your own comparison. the specific changes. This was our way of transparency, because not everyone takes the time to read 8 fonts or 6 fonts, sorry, Tim, in the ACL of these 54 pages. Or, and so this was your way. You have a couple of different ways to understand it. Yes?
I just have a question, and I might be completely ignorant to this, whatever, but, is there any changes or rules that are gonna be made to the boating or the aid or the trails?
Those come from rules and regulations,
Is there any changes to those?
not in the separation or the bylaws. Okay? Those are rules and regulations, and you actually have some people here who are on that commission. Mike Terry, Vicki, you're on that. I'm chairperson. Yeah. So you can talk to Vicki, Mike, George is on that? You're on trails, okay? Trails.
Who's on rules and
Okay.
regs, yeah.
So George, and Mike Harris and Vicki are who you can have your
And I have
conversation.
one more question.
Sure.
So our property that we own, we have lakeview property, we don't have lakefront. Is there, any rules that are gonna be changed as to how we can, me as a property owner, willing to do it at my own expense, not at the expense of spending the association's money or students or fees, to maintain the
Greenway space?
greenway?
George?
My belief is that when we bought our lot, when Apple Canyon was very first built, we had a beautiful view of the lake. Okay?
Now everything grew up.
Yes,
Okay, you were.
everything grew up, and I'm not asking to cut down, I mean, obviously trees, I'm not asking that. I just wanna get something that I paid to get with my lot, that I can actually see some of the lake, because I can't see anything. And I know that we have to go through a whole procedure, I know that I have to bankrupt.
George is gonna share that with you.
You would have to go to the Conservation Commission, and you would have to apply for a freeway stewardship program. And they will, the commission will inspect it, what you wanna do for the greenway and blah, blah, blah. And they will monitor what you decide to do, or if you're gonna hire somebody to do it. But everything would be monitored
Are
because.
they still restricting cutting down of trees or certain trees?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Not invasive.
Not
You
invasive.
can get rid of that invasive.
Yeah, like honeysuckle.
Honeysuckle.
Yeah,
That's invasive.
that's
But what they don't want is they don't want you to go in and just clear the land completely.
Okay, do not cut down any trees without talking.
No, I'm not, no, I'm definitely not doing, I know.
I have my other representatives from the commission just sharing, don't cut down any trees, because there's fines associated with
No, I
that.
know
Without
that,
harming
I
on, yes,
Yes,
okay, so Joe Wiener at Maintenance, you can, email him at building inspector, whatever.
Well, actually, that falls under conservation.
And also,
Aaron, all you're doing is the one come out and watch.
I've spoken with Aaron.
okay, there you go.
Aaron, be the one that come on top. Aaron would tell you what the conservation.
We got kind of nowhere, and my neighbor kind of found some stuff at the building, and they got the game here in the summer, and I just kind of wondering if there was any kind of changes to see what it is.
Thank you for that. Okay, everything else we can do?
Yeah, I was just, honeysuckle is what I
Oh, you're honeysuckle, darn honeysuckle. Okay, but did the process, did you take away something from tonight that you feel you know more than what you need?
More than I thought. Yeah, more layman stuff.
I know, it's really.
It's all right, I understand what we're trying to do.
It's
You're just gut checking the rules.
right. And now, as a board, you've heard it twice, you're okay?
What?
Okay. Finally, I want to promote that, legal commission is looking for new membership. So be part of the solution, get involved, and conservation had their plug today on the apple seed. And it was a beautiful promotion of joint conservation. But yes, we are looking for new membership. And so we've had a couple of resignations, longtime members, and so we want to replace those people. And so please fill out an application, it's right out there in the kiosk. And, the chairperson will call you and ask you what your interest is and how you can help the team move forward and get back to you. And then it goes to, if approved, it goes to the board of directors. Okay?
I just want to know, what happens to that board of actually practicing the tax?
That one?
Yeah, of the legal.
We had two, both, okay, what, Bo's name off there? Bo Stepway? It's still here. Bo just resigned, last fall, like November.
Really?
He's been on it, and then Bill Doran, is Bill still on Zoom?
Bill's on, yep.
Bill Doran,
Okay.
you're a longtime member of legal.
You're on mute.
Sean, you muted me.
But the most important thing is also to have our, the expertise of our legal counsel. And that's why we replaced the former legal counsel with a legal counsel that has expertise in homeowners association. And that's very, very important.
That's all he does, basically.
That's all he does. And he's read rules and regs, he's read, AECC building code, and so now we can bring it all together. So this is all I got for you. This is the best I can give you for changes. I can add more pictures, but, it is a volunteer position, and, it has pictures. The next time we meet, we're going to go through Articles, 6 through 11 of the Declaration. But now you have it in front of you, you can prepare, you can also take extra question picks this with you, take a bunch of them, so you can write it down. So, there are different ways to communicate your concerns and changes. And that's what's important. Yeah.
Joey?
Yeah, hey.
The reason why you keep hearing the insistence on writing your questions down is, one, we don't want you to be not heard. And two, we want to make those questions public. It is a public meeting, and we would like everybody's concerns to be heard by everybody. Who knows, Debbie, there might be 50 people out there that are asking the same question you're asking, but they're not here to share their voice, but they may be able to read it somewhere.
Or they're on Zoom.
Or they're doing Facebook Live. They could be accessing from another type of venue.
Right.
But writing your questions down is incredibly important because it gives everybody time to think. So now, if somebody sends me a really complicated email, I don't respond to it right that second. And if it's really super complicated, I'll read it 2 or 3 times, then I'll sit down and I'll think, and then I'll go do something. And then I will respond to it the following day when I've had time to rationalize everything and understand the content of what I was sent. So some of these questions can get complex, like your question regarding, spouses. They can get complex, and for me to come up with a really good answer would be difficult because I would want to sit down and think about it, maybe take it to Mr. Jones and find out what he thinks about it, and find out what the other legal ramifications there are about non-spouses or other types of situations that we do not want to incorporate into our documentation. We certainly don't want to infest a piece of artwork with garbage. We certainly don't want to do that.
Right.
And, and this is some very interesting work. I was very excited when I seen Article 5 hit the table, because that's my wheelhouse. And this was absolutely fantastic for me to see some of the stuff that was given back. There was nothing taken away. There were things that were clarified, and there were things that they loosened up on things. There were things that were given back. And if you read through some of the changes that are real subtle, one of the changes they talked about was in the wells. all right? Yeah, we have lots that are gonna require wells based on topography. But one of the last sentences in the old covenants says the association is going to manage that inspection. The association is going to set the fee. How many people want the association to decide what they're going to pay? It comes back down to, you can have somebody who's a licensed professional do it and provide that information to the association. So now you are giving the opportunity back to make the choices for yourself and the association not making them for you. A lot of what happened in that article excites me because it brought itself back to back to the choice of the members, and it brought itself closer into alignment with what is going on with the county and the county codes. These things change, you know, like the board member had stated, they change frequently. They change about every 2 to 3 years. But there are two codes that we absolutely have no choice but to observe, and that's the plumbing and environmental code. Those are required by statute. And this is the reason why the association really didn't have any say on solar panels. Because this is gonna end up in the environmental code when it gets rewritten by that council. The solar panel issue was written by legislators, not by the council. So when it comes around full circle again on the next edition, it's gonna get incorporated, and it will be adopted by the state of Illinois, and by statute, it will be mandatory. I seen a hand. Were you gonna take a shot at me? But no, it's a lot. It took 5 years for a half a dozen people to get through this.
Yeah.
And we could spend days trying to explain to you how we got here. But it's going to involve the attorney and all his comment and all that. We're going to spend hours and hours and hours. But if you see something that strikes you as odd, please reach out to the committee and ask the questions.
And by not writing it down, it makes it very difficult to share it with the people who were unable to attend tonight.
Absolutely.
And also, when you write it down and we read it, we can go right to the spot of what you were talking about. Even our board members, we were confused on the one Monday night. We called for clarification. We thought that idea was a good idea. But once we figured out, well, where should it go? And the sentence, where should it go? And why should it be there? He goes, it's the how. And it just made sense. So that's the process. All right? Fine.
Regardless of if I agree with you or if I don't agree with you, thank you for all your work. I know you've been busting your butt to do this now.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I will continue to do exactly what I've been doing.
And I don't agree with you.
Well, that's the thing that's really interesting, is there might be parts of the declaration as it's being restated that I don't agree with. But is it about me, or is it about the community? Is it how to make the community work? That's what it's about. What makes the community work together? Not about whether I like it or not. If I had my brothers, we'd take Section 5 and Section 7, throw them out the window. We would burn the AECC, code book, and we'd give them guys their walking papers. But at that point in time, then we introduced chaos. And then we introduced a whole bunch of stuff that we're not going to be able to control.
So, the other comments, please drop off your comments on the table as you leave. And the other comment is, if you have any other way you'd like to see this presented at October 7th, please let me know. But it has to be in a timely manner. It has to be one that's recorded. And so right now we're educating. At the end of your education, after going through this process, if we feel we need to set town hall meetings, I call them hoot and holler meetings. If you want to have hoot and holler meetings, we can schedule that at the end. But it's a lot easier to hoot and holler when you've had the documents in front of you and the explanation and the reason for change to then say, this I don't agree with and it won't work. Okay? So we shall see you October